Are you struggling on your frugal living journey because you actually have too much stuff? In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips to help you declutter like a boss and rock your frugal living journey. And stick around to the end for a bonus that you do not want to miss. Welcome, I'm Amy, and here at Frugal Over 50, I give you tips and tools for frugal living, all personally tested by me. Now let's get right to these tips. Number 1, when it comes to decluttering, you need to know your why. What is your reason for decluttering? And I'll tell you, there's a little secret to this. It can't be just a vague feeling of dissatisfaction with your stuff. It can't be just sort of a general malaise about your life. You need to get more specific. If you have that vague dissatisfaction, that general malaise, that's a great start. Tune into it, be aware of it, but get more specific. Understand, why are you decluttering? Let me give you an example. Recently, I needed to do a decluttering job on a room in my house, and I had a vague feeling of general dissatisfaction, and I couldn't figure out why. I discovered that I have 3 reasons why I needed to declutter this room. One is, over the next year, year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in that time frame, I'm going to be moving. And now is the time for me to look through my possessions and get rid of things that I don't want to pack in a box and move thousands of miles eventually. The second reason is because since March, my whole life has changed. And I used to teach voice lessons right here in this room. Well, I don't teach very many voice lessons anymore, and they're all on Zoom. So I need a different setup. And the room was not set up for what I needed, and instead I was just piling new things on top of old things. I needed to declutter and reorganize. And the third thing is that as part of this, I actually needed to get something new in to help me make my life work now. But I needed to make space for that. So any kind of change that you see coming up is going to inspire you to declutter. And you may not understand what that impulse is, especially if you have not decluttered very much before or you're not exactly sure how to go about it. Start with your why. What is the reason? And really get specific. I named 3 reasons why I had to declutter one room. You may have one big overarching reason, or you may have several reasons. But think about that place in your house, that place in your garage, that place in your car that's really bugging you, and decide, why do I need to declutter this? Because if you can find your why, then you can go on to the next step. Tip number 2 is to decide what you are going to declutter. And at this point, I'm not talking about individual little things, but what area of your house, what area of that drawer, what area of your car. What are you going to declutter? I didn't really want to focus on decluttering my entire house from top to bottom, for instance. I didn't feel like decluttering my car. My car doesn't get much use these days, so I don't really need to declutter it anyway. But I had one room that I wanted to focus on. And other parts of the house probably need some attention, but not right now. Right now, because of the 3 reasons that I identified, I picked one room that really needed some work. And that's the what. That's the space that I was working in. That's the space that I was decluttering. Be really specific in your what area, what part of your house, what part of your life are you going to declutter? And don't say everything. Be more specific than that. Drill it down, because once you start one thing, then something else will come out of it. Don't expect yourself to just do everything now. That's not how decluttering works. It's a step at a time. Tip number 3 is make a determination of who will do this particular job. You've already come up with your why. What is your reason? You've already come up with your what. What area, what drawer, what room are you going to declutter? Now you need to determine who is going to be doing this job. Often decluttering is not a job for just one person, and you need to get other people involved, especially if you live in a family. Now, if you live by yourself, or if you're decluttering things that are just yours, you still may need to call in some troops to help out. What if you realize that that old piece of furniture sitting in the corner has got to go? You probably aren't going to be the one to lift it and carry it and take care of getting rid of it all by yourself. So make a list of who's going to be there. Are you going to be the one in charge, or are you following somebody else's lead? Are you working in a team? Are you hiring help? Are you asking for people to come and collect stuff off of your driveway? Think very carefully and think very specifically about who is doing this. Now, in my case, it was pretty easy. I knew my why. I knew what area I was going to clear out, and I knew that it was almost entirely on me to do because it was almost entirely my stuff. But I do have 2 teenagers in my house, and so when I needed something moved, something heavy, I could ask for help. And so that was my who. It was mostly me, and I knew who I could go to for help as I was moving along. When you know who is going to be on your team, who's going to be in your corner, everything feels so much more reassuring, and you don't feel alone. One thing about decluttering is that it can feel like a lonesome journey, and it can feel like a very emotional journey, especially if you're decluttering things that you've had for a long time, things that have meant something to you in the past. It can be really hard and kind of sad sometimes. And so it's helpful to know who is really on your team, who is really on your side, who's got your back, who's going to be working with you, and sign those people up and take the encouragement that they offer. Now, speaking of offering encouragement, I love to offer encouragement here, and I am so glad that so many of you agree and have come along. If you are new here, I would love to invite you to please subscribe to the channel, and then hit the notification bell so that you'll get notified first of new videos. And you know what else I'd love to have you do? I would love it if you would give this video a like, and not only that, but please share it with a friend or 2 or 10. This channel and our community is growing, and you folks are wonderful with sharing your wisdom down in the comments, and I am so excited to hear from you and to see you here again. Now let's get right back to our tips. Now, as we get into tip number 4, I want you to keep in mind that so far you probably have not decluttered a thing. You have determined why you're decluttering, you have determined what you are going to declutter, and you have got people on your team who can help and support and encourage you along the way. The next step is you have to determine how you are going to declutter. And some of this has to do with your particular way of living, your particular way of thinking. You might want to do this little by little, a little every day or a little every week until it gets done. You might also be a person who says, no, if I don't do it all at once, it's not going to happen. And so you block out an entire day or an entire weekend or even an entire week, and that is all you do. Now for me, that second approach really does not work. If I just block out time and don't do anything else in my life, I end up feeling very behind in other aspects of my life. And I would ask you to think about this part of it as well when you're thinking about your how. Think about what else do you have to do in the day, in the week, in the month. What do you have to get done that has to keep getting done even if you're adding decluttering to your schedule? And this is a tricky business because when you're adding decluttering, it may feel like you're cluttering your schedule with a new agenda item, which is decluttering. And you want to be very careful to honor your own time and honor your own previous and important commitments while you are still decluttering. So think about how you're going to do this. In my case, it took me a period of about 2 weeks to get through this one room. And I kept many other things in my life going. I have a lot of balls in the air that I'm juggling all the time, and I had to keep those going. Once I got done with that 2-week process, I had really gone through an emotional journey of saying goodbye to my in-person voice studio for the foreseeable future. That was really sad for me. I also said hello to an improved YouTube studio setup, which you can see behind me and which I'm going to talk about more next week. And that was exciting and wonderful, and I gotta tell you, slightly terrifying, because this channel is growing so fast that I really have to make room for it in my life and in my room that used to be just about voice teaching. It is an emotional journey. So think about how you're going to do this in terms of your time frame and how you're going to keep the rest of your life going as you're going through this physical and emotional journey. Number 5, I want you to think about where all of the stuff that you're decluttering is going to go. Just look around and make an assessment. And there are some basic places that you'll probably send your stuff. Some of it is gonna go to the trash. It's not worth doing anything else with. Some of it will be repurposed inside your home. It will find a new use. For instance, the table that used to sit back here is now a sewing table over there for the teens. They have a sewing machine now, and that table is for them. You might want to recycle some things. You might want to give away some things. You might want to sell some things. There's a wide variety of options. It's a big world out there, and your stuff might find a new home with somebody who really loves it and will use it. On the other hand, this might be a good opportunity for you to just get a bunch of trash cleared out of your house. So think about where your stuff is going to go next, and thank it for its service to you all of this time, and send it on its way with a blessing wherever you're sending it. Now, with these 5 tips in mind, you have everything that you need to get started picking up that thing and asking yourself, am I keeping it or am I decluttering it? And that is the part where the rubber meets the road, and where you take your next day, your next weekend, your next week, your next several weeks to just go through it piece by piece by piece and ask yourself, is this going to stay here or is it going somewhere else where it will be loved again? I promised you a bonus tip, and here it is. Anytime you feel owned by your stuff instead of you owning your stuff, that's a sign that it's time to declutter. And I know that that's tricky for those of us on a frugal living journey. We may come from a life of poverty or a life of deprivation, and if we have stuff, we may feel very committed to keeping it because you could put it to some use someday. Well, that's possible, but you won't know that if you feel like your stuff is owning you. You'll just feel like you're buried in it. And what you need to do, what I need to do, what we all need to do, is to go through our stuff periodically, not just once in our lifetime, but periodically, and say, do I own this or is it owning me right now? Is it something that I can really use? Is it of benefit to me on my frugal living journey? Does it benefit my family on our frugal living journey? Ask yourself those questions, and anytime you feel owned by your stuff, it's time for what the Brits would call a good clear out. Just take care of it, take care of getting rid of it, take care of repurposing it, and then you will be free. It will open not only your space, it will open your mind to new possibilities for really strong frugal living. For now, I want you to know that I am so proud of you wherever you are on your frugal living journey. You are not alone. I am with you, and we are now a growing community of almost 5,000 subscribers and many more of you who just stop in every so often for a cup of coffee and a chat. I am so glad that you are here. I am so proud of you, and I want you to take the next step. Which of these 5 tips are you going to do today as part of your decluttering journey, as part of your frugal living journey? Take that next step, and I can't wait to see you again. Bye-bye.